Good morning and welcome. We're so happy you're joining us for worship today, whether you're tuning in from your home or you're here in person at Unity Temple. Visitors may stop by the welcome table after service, or if you're at home, you can fill out a visitor form on our website and I will gladly follow up with you next week. If you are someone who has been thinking about becoming a member of our congregation, you're invited to participate in our upcoming Pathway to Membership class on November the 12th and 19th from 1 to 3. You'll learn more about the history of our congregation, how things work today, and how you can become involved in our future. Contact me, Tina Lewis, at tlewis@unitytemple.org to register. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and I hope you enjoy the service.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Kiesling, and I serve as a member of your Board of Trustees. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. If you are here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We look forward to getting to know you, and we invite everyone present in the sanctuary today to join our in-person community hour immediately following the service. Our online Zoom community time will happen right after the service. The link can be found in the e-beacon or Friday's email, or you may send an email to tlewis@unitytemple.org to request the link. We appreciate everyone wearing a mask over your mouth and nose during the service as a way to protect each other, especially our children and those among us who may not be able to be vaccinated. If you find yourself needing a break from wearing your mask, we invite you to go out on the patio and come back when you're ready. Each week, we remind ourselves of our congregation's core values: connection, transformation, justice, and acceptance. Our mission is to embody these core values in our daily lives by welcoming all, inspiring compassion, nurturing wonder, and serving community. Inspiring compassion means we cultivate caring communities for one another in this congregation. We bear witness to love and pain in the world and respond individually and collectively with acts of compassion. We are so glad you are with us today. We hope you find the service inspiring and meaningful. I invite you now to take a moment to greet one another, both online and in the sanctuary.
Are you saying something?
Hi. Good morning.
I thought people haven't been here yet. It's nice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Grace Van Noot. Grace grew up in our congregation. This is Grace's first time back since returning from Greece. And Grace is currently working in Illinois Senate President Don Harmon's office. I invite you to join with me in the words of our chalice lighting. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind, the loving hearts, and the helping hands. We take care of the planet Earth and each other.
Our call to worship this morning is from the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich, a Unitarian Universalist minister, writer, musician, and activist. They identify as a non-binary bisexual person of color. Open up the doors. Push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved. Slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside. Open the doors more. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the dust motes something to dance about. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits you best. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open up the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of the stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon, welcoming the next seeker, and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are. Heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster. And pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. Come. Let us worship together.
Please join me in the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus we do covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. My name is Diana Coates, and I'm one of your pastoral associates. It's so good to see you all today in person. Holding each other in our hearts is a time in the service when we pause to share the joys and sorrows of our lives, those moments that have moved our spirit throughout the week. We are a community whose mission commits us to inspiring compassion in our lives and in our church. We wish to companion with you and sit down with you in times of joy and sorrow. To share a milestone, a loss, or major transition, please email us at pastoralassociates@unitytemple.org. Kelvin Sykes, son of Maisel and Robert Sykes, was shot and killed Friday. He was 37. Please hold the family in your thoughts and prayers. Chalice flowers are back and made possible today by a donation from Judy Compton in remembrance of her very musical mother, Ruth Leary. We shall celebrate a joy that our 5 to 11-year-olds can now receive the vaccine, and several people came up to me to share that their grandchildren or children have received the vaccine. And from Lisa Aiken, whose daughter, Carmen, though vaccinated, contracted COVID, is now recovering. And for all those who have suffered physically and economically from the pandemic. Linda Mosley is grateful to Dr. Carras and his team at Rush for her knee surgery. She's home and driving her family crazy, and she'll be back with us soon. Violence touches the lives of many people, both outside and inside our community. We pray for all those whose lives have been impacted by violence as either victims or perpetrators. Let us hold in our hearts joys and sorrows, spoken as well as those unspoken, but present in this community as we enter into a moment of reflection. As daylight diminishes, I need these thoughts more than ever. Angeles Aaron, in her book, The Second Half of Life, speaks of the healing balm of nature. Many indigenous cultures and spiritual tradition recognize 4 natural sanctuaries where we can remember and come home to who we are: the desert, the mountains, the waters, and the woods. Nature comes from the Latin natus, to be born. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but somebody will let me know later. Anyway, I really like that, natus, to be born. They look to these places for remembrance, soul retrieval work, and to be reborn and renewed. As we are made from the natural elements, fire, air, water, and earth, we are always drawn to come into harmony with the beauty of nature around us. It nourishes our soul and opens us to be born into the mysterious presence and promptings of our own vast inner world. Because we have originated from nature, if we wander away for too long its rhythm and beauty always calls us to return. For me, when life is too overbearing, too bumpy, I head for the outdoors, even a short walk around the block, opening my terrace door. If I can get to the forest or walk along the sidewalk along the forest, or better yet, take a drive to our lake, Lake Michigan. It's just there for us. And watch the sunrise or just look at the waves. Very healing for me. And I'm just inviting you for one moment to close your eyes if you'd like, and to think about a time when nature brought you back. Think about the joy, think about how your body felt in that moment. Just breathe that in. And I invite you, as you move throughout your day, to remember other times that nature has restored you and healed you. Thank you. Blessed be.
Who likes to come close when you're listening to a story, I invite you to come down here and sit on the floor near me. I have a story about some friends, George and Martha. Maybe you know these friends. Come and sit down. Yeah. I bet a lot of you have friends, and do you always want to do exactly the same things? No. Do you like the same things? Sometimes. Sometimes being a friend is a little complicated and you don't agree. And these are little stories about George and Martha and just, what it's like to be a friend. George and Martha, round and round. 5 stories about the best of friends. Story number 1, the clock. George gave Martha a present for her birthday. "It's a cuckoo clock," said George. "So I see," said Martha. "It's nice and loud," said George. "So I hear," said Martha. "Do you like it?" asked George. "Oh, yes, indeed," said Martha. But to tell the truth, the cuckoo clock got on Martha's nerves. The next day, George went to Martha's house. Martha was not at home, and the cuckoo clock was not on the wall. "Maybe she likes it so much she took it with her," said George. Just then he heard a faint cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. To George's surprise, the cuckoo clock was at the bottom of Martha's laundry basket. When Martha returned, she couldn't look George in the eye. "It must have fallen in by mistake," she said. "I do hope it isn't broken." "Not at all," said George. "The paint isn't even chipped, the clock works just dandy, and the cuckoo hasn't lost its splendid voice." "Would you like to borrow it?" asked Martha. George was delighted. He found just the right spot for it, too. "Wasn't that considerate of Martha to lend me her clock?" thought George. "Cuckoo," said the clock. Story number 2, the trip. George invited Martha on an ocean cruise. "Is this the boat?" said Martha. They're on a little wooden raft. Use your imagination, said George. I'll try, said Martha. Very soon it was raining cats and dogs. This is unpleasant, said Martha. Use your imagination, said George. Think of it as a thrilling storm at sea. I'll try, said Martha. Lunch is served, said George, and he gave Martha a soggy cracker. Martha was not impressed. Use your imagination, said George. Oh, looky, said Martha. What a pretty shark. A shark, cried George. George took a spill. But where's the shark, he said. Really, said Martha, you must learn to use your imagination. Story number 3, The Artist. George was painting in oils. That ocean doesn't look quite right, said Martha. Add some more blue, and that sand looks all wrong. Add a bit more yellow. Please, said George. Artists don't like interference. But Martha just couldn't help herself. The palm trees looked funny, she said. That does it, said George. See if you can do better. And he went off in a huff. My, said Martha, some artists are so touchy. And she began to make a few little improvements. And it kind of looks like she's just spraying paint all over. When George returned, Martha proudly displayed the painting. It kind of looks like a mess. George was flabbergasted. You've ruined it, he cried. I'm sorry you feel that way, said Martha. I like it. Martha was one of those artists who wasn't a bit touchy. Story number 4, The Attic. One cold and stormy night, George decided to peek into the attic. Go on up, said Martha. Ooh, no, said George. There might be a ghost up there, or a skeleton, or a vampire, or maybe even some werewolves. Oh, goody, said Martha. Let's investigate. But there wasn't much to see in the attic, only a box of old rubber bands. George was disappointed. Would you like to hear a story that will give you goosebumps? Asked Martha. You bet, said George. When you hear it, your bones will go cold, said Martha. Ooh, said George. Your blood will curdle, said Martha. Ooh, said George. And you'll feel mummy fingers up and down your spine, said Martha. Stop, cried George. I can't take any more. Tell me some other time. That night, Martha went to bed with the light on. She had a bad case of the goosebumps. The last story, The Surprise. One late summer morning, George had a wicked idea. I shouldn't, he said. I really shouldn't. But he just couldn't help himself. Here comes the rain, he cried. Egad, screamed Martha. He showered her with the hose. Martha was thoroughly drenched and mad as a wet hen. That did it, she said. We are no longer on speaking terms. I was only horsing around, said George. But Martha was unmoved. The next morning, Martha read a funny story. I can't wait to tell George, she said. Then she remembered that she and George were no longer on speaking terms. Around noon, Martha heard a joke on the radio. George will love this one, she said. But she and George weren't speaking. In the afternoon, Martha observed the first autumn leaf fall to the ground. Autumn is George's favorite season, she said. Another leaf came swirling down. That does it, said Martha. Martha went straight to George's house. I forgive you, she said. George was delighted to be back on speaking terms. Good friends just can't stay cross for long, said George. You can say that again, said Martha. And together they watched the autumn arrive. But when summer rolled around again, Martha was ready and waiting with the hose. The end. If you would like to come and do some fun things in Unity House with me, you are welcome to come out the door.
next two performers include Alexei Poltavchenko, who is from Odessa in the Ukraine, and Naomi Rusalka, who hails from Chicago. Together, we present the Canto Primo Cello Suite by Benjamin Britten.
Thank you, Alexei and Naomi. Oh my goodness. Did you feel the heightened dissonance in that piece? The music and the dance, the tension. Good art often leaves us feeling unsettled, wanting a resolution like an unresolved chord. That's such an excellent metaphor for where many of us are right now. Between the pandemic, mixed messages from authorities, confusion around what values we want to prioritize, we want to just move on already, get back to normal. But even what looks like it will be normal isn't. Being here now is not the way it used to be. We can't sing. There's no food at coffee hour. There's a strange new minister in the pulpit. Of course you're feeling unsettled. Feeling unsettled can also lead to conflict. It might happen when you open an email or when you see something on social media, or you're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner and your uncle says something harmful, or you realize your partner has used your toothbrush again, or your parent has embarrassed you in front of your teacher, or your minister says something you think is really wrong. It can happen anytime. I invite you to think of a time when you anticipated or participated in conflict. Close your eyes if you want to. Think about the feeling in your body. Did your heart start to race? Did your shoulders get all tense? Maybe your mind went completely blank. Did you feel it when those stress hormones kicked in? All right, you don't have to stay there anymore. As it turns out, our responses to conflict are often very similar to our responses to trauma. Maybe you want to fight, to open up your phone and write an angry text or email. Or maybe you just want to leave the room, flee, get away from the source of your anxiety as quickly as you can. Maybe you just freeze, sit there, stunned that someone would say something like that. Or maybe you are a people pleaser and feel like you need to make the other person feel better, something called fawning, a behavior to avoid conflict as much as possible by doing anything to keep the peace. Fawning has been added to the fight, flight, and freeze responses. Now, most of us are not fans of conflict because we know how it makes us feel, either physically or emotionally or both. It certainly is not comfortable. Even if we grew up in homes with a lot of conflict, so much so that it was normalized, our bodies still have these involuntary autonomic responses to it. But conflict is inevitable. We each have our own life experiences that have informed our values and opinions. Our searches for truth and meaning have led us down different paths. We are going to disagree, and sometimes that disagreement will be fierce. The thing is, conflict isn't necessarily bad. In fact, there are some benefits to conflict. When we engage in appropriate and healthy conflict, when we can wrestle with conflict without calling each other names, when we can focus on working through an issue rather than being focused on being right or winning, when we can engage conflict more concerned about the impact of our words and actions than we are with making sure that our intentions are understood, when we can notice our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses, reactions, and not let them dictate our responses, when we can engage conflict with appropriate and healthy responses, we find that conflict can actually have some really fantastic benefits to us as individuals and in our communal lives. Priya Parker, in her book, The Art of Gathering, writes that she believes that healthy controversy can add both energy and life to gatherings, as well as be clarifying. Now, while she's using the term controversy, she's really talking about turning up the heat, about conflict. Good controversy, she writes, is the kind of contention that helps people look more closely at what they care about when there is danger, but also real benefit in doing so. To embrace good controversy is to embrace the idea that harmony is not necessarily the highest and certainly not the only value. Good controversy helps us re-examine what we hold dear, our values, priorities, non-negotiables. Good controversy is generative rather than preservationist. It leads to something better than the status quo. It helps communities move forward in their thinking. It helps us grow. Good controversy, she continues, can be messy in the midst of the brawling. But when it works, she says, it is clarifying and cleansing and a forceful antidote to bullshit. Her words. There is so much, I bet that's going to cause some conflict. There is so much in that passage. Let me unpack it just a little bit. Parker says that when we embrace good controversy, when we embrace healthy conflict, then we have opportunities to do the following 6 things. First, good conflict gives us the opportunity to re-examine what we hold dear. When we engage with an open mind and heart rather than trying to prove ourselves right, healthy conflict can cause us to re-examine our values and priorities. A good example of this is found in discussions around opening congregations for in-person worship. In congregations around the country, we saw the same conflict. Some folks would prioritize the physical health of congregants, and others would prioritize the mental health of the community. Most congregations found that at some point these two things were in direct conflict with each other. We've all had to figure out which values took priority at various points of time during the pandemic. It's been a moving target, and it requires us to constantly re-examine our values, priorities, and non-negotiables. The second benefit is that good conflict gives us the opportunity to be generative rather than preservationist. This is one of my favorite things about conflict. It is creative. As we engage in healthy conflict, old ideas are challenged and new ideas emerge, and this can lead to something better than the status quo. Problems that have not been addressed can be addressed creatively in our lives as individuals and in our communal lives. It can lead to new programs and new ministries in a congregation. Management expert Richard Pascal famously said that success breeds failure. His argument is that sooner or later, successful organizations will go into decline unless they put in systems that stimulate debate and, to an extent, stimulate conflict. This means then that one of the tasks of leaders is to challenge and, where necessary, break the habits of thinking that become embedded in teams, groups, and organizations to mix up the status quo. Which leads to number 3, good conflict can help communities move forward. One of the interesting things about healthy conflict is that it can actually increase trust in a relationship, team, or community because it demonstrates our ability to disagree and yet stay in relationship. Staying in a relationship during healthy conflict proves we aren't going to run away, that we can say hard things to each other. This then allows us to have awkward conversations that we may have been avoiding. For example, in meeting rooms around the world, it is not uncommon for a woman's idea to be ignored until a man actually states it. I'm sure some of you have had this experience. When a team has a discussion about how this is manifesting among them, it can help the team to move forward, to break through into a new way of being, to become more creative and more efficient. But it almost certainly won't be comfortable, which leads to number 4. Good conflict helps us grow. Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing said, "Difficulties are meant to rouse, not discourage. The human spirit is to grow strong by conflict." But the thing about growth is it's pretty much never comfortable. People generally don't grow until the pain associated with not growing is actually greater than the effort it will take to grow. Healthy conflict can light the fire that causes the discomfort that eventually can lead to growth. But we have to stick with the discomfort. We have to remember that discomfort is not going to kill us. It's merely uncomfortable. For example, when a white person is told that we are acting in a racist way, it is not comfortable. We often get defensive, and there is internal and possibly external conflict. But if we can sit with the discomfort, examine our values and priorities, and stay in the conversation without trying to win or prove something, we may find that we learn something about ourselves and grow as a result. Which can lead to number 5. Good conflict can be clarifying and cleansing. Healthy conflict can focus attention on problems that need to be solved, but which have previously been ignored or neglected. Problems that perhaps have been bottled up, where no one is saying what they really think. Healthy conflict can bring an issue out into the open. I have a friend whose name is very difficult to pronounce. She wasn't correcting people about it, and it built up inside of her over time until she kind of exploded with it. When she did, though, she felt better for having it out in the open, and after a short period of discomfort and growth, we all felt better. Because we wanted to be good friends with her, and of course, pronouncing her name correctly is a part of what it means to be a good friend. And finally, number 6, good conflict can be a forceful antidote to BS. Carl Bergstrom, professor of biology at the University of Washington and owner of the website callingbullshit.org, I can't win, says one of the common habits of successful working teams is that their members learn to call BS on one another without disrespecting or perceiving disrespect. That allows the team to rapidly cut through mistaken arguments with a minimum of social friction. It isn't easy to call a congregant, a friend, a loved one out on something that they say that is problematic, offensive, or just plain wrong. As Professor Dumbledore reminds us, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to your enemies, but a great deal more to stand up to your friends. So, to summarize, Parker says good conflict gives us the opportunity to re-examine our values, can be creative, can help us break through to new ways of being, can help us grow, can get things out in the open, and can get us through to the heart of the matter. That is a lot of really great stuff. Activist Saul Alinsky reminds us that change means movement. Movement means friction. Only in a frictionless vacuum of non-existent, abstract worlds can movement and change occur without that abrasive friction of conflict. Since we're going to find ourselves in that place of abrasive friction, wish it was fiction. Since we're going to find ourselves in this place of conflict, of abrasive friction, we might as well get good at it. All right, so take another deep breath. Close your eyes if you'd like to, and imagine yourself. Imagine the next time you read an email, or when you see something on social media, or when someone you care about says something you strongly disagree with. Imagine your anxiety kicking in, your heartbeat rising, maybe your shoulders scrunch up. Do you want to fight, flee, freeze, or fawn? Now, imagine that instead of reacting to the conflict, you decide to stay present, to engage in the conflict in healthy ways. You're respectful and don't resort to name-calling. You focus on working through the issue instead of winning. You pay attention to the impact of your words and actions. You decide to sit with the discomfort because you know conflict can be healthy and can lead to new growth, new ways of being, new ideas. Because you know that when we are able to engage conflict in a healthy way, amazing things can happen. Imagine it. And next time you have the opportunity, because you will have the opportunity, try it out. As George and Martha demonstrated in our message for all ages, relationships take work. We will challenge each other, and conflict is inevitable. May we embrace the idea that harmony is not the highest value in being together, and instead practice engaging in healthy conflict in our families, on our teams, in our communities, and in our congregation. And together, may we reap the benefits. Blessed be.
Each week, Unity Temple gives our Sunday offering to an organization that aligns with our values. This week, our offering supports the Unitarian Universalist Association. The UUA is our denominational leadership body and provides support for its member congregations. In the past year, Unity Temple has experienced many benefits from the UUA, including support from our regional staff leadership, support with the process of hiring our interim minister, Reverend Dawn, support for my process of ministerial development in my internship here, consultation with the personnel committee around fair compensation and staffing issues, as well as guidance around the changes and the struggles that the pandemic has brought. The resources and the support the UUA offers us to thrive as a UU congregation. This week, you may donate by placing a cash or check in a box that we have here on our front pew, or by sending a check to the Unity Temple office with UUA written on the memo line, or by following the instructions you have on the screen. May what you give bring you joy.
we would be one, not one as in the same, not one in agreement, not one in life experiences, but one as in a communal body that works together towards common goals. We will disagree. We will argue. There will be conflict. May we engage in that conflict in healthy ways, able to listen to each other and embrace the discomfort. And may that conflict allow us to grow, spark creativity, and make us stronger. Blessed be, may it be so.